Okay, everybody who hates sanding as much as I do, put up your hand. Oh boy, I just hate sanding. Hello everyone, I'm Colin Canet. Today I'm going to show you some of the tips and tricks that I use to help speed up my sanding that I have to do. And you know, if you're enjoying this series and you want to see more, you don't want to miss an episode, I invite you to subscribe and click that little notification bell, and let's get on with the first sanding hack. So today I'm starting off with a sanding block that I make, and I just use scrap wood. They're 2 inches wide and 5 1/4 inches long, and there's a little slot down there for grip. And I make these, I just use a circular saw blade in my table saw. I'll put a link to that so you'll be able to see that. Using circular saw blades in your table saw. And the reason I like the circular saw blade, it gives a nice thin kerf. It's a little harder to put the sandpaper in there, but boy, when you put that in there, it sure grips nice. When you don't have this little slot in here, I find the sandpaper tends to move around a bit, and it's a little bit harder to grip. This makes a really big difference when you're sanding that little slot in there. But look, here's another little trick that I learned. You can buy at many craft stores this sticky backed foam. That's a very thin, you can see it's a very thin foam material, and it just sticks on there, and it just gives an extra sort of buffering when you're sanding, especially when you're sanding corners. It just feels much better. It seems like you get a little bit better sanding surface when you use that. These things come in sheets. I think this is a 9 by 12. They're fairly inexpensive. Adhesive foam sheets, and you can find that at many craft stores. I use these, I make a few of these, and I just put different grits in them so that I don't have to fiddle around changing the sandpaper. I just reach for another one, and it's got another grit. Really quick and easy, super little sanding blocks. The next thing that I use quite a bit of is this little sandpaper cutter, and it's a measurer and a cutter. I don't know if you can see, but it's got some lines on there, and there's 3 lines actually, because not all sandpaper is exactly the same. But look, here's how it works. Basically, if I want to cut a sheet in half this way, now you can cut it and fold it and do it that way. I just find it so much quicker to put it in like this, line it up like that, and then I can just tear it off. Now I usually don't do quarter sheets, but that's a quick way of doing it. Now, if you want to do the long way, you just use the other line on here, and it lines it up perfectly. And that way, I know that whenever I do this, it's going to fit in my sanding blocks, and it isn't going to tear to be uneven or tear one way or another. So, quick little way. All that is a hacksaw blade in there, and you can see the bolts on each side. Just a very thin piece of plywood. I use this thing a lot. But look, here's something else. If you're using sandpaper and it comes in a package like this, leave it in the package as long as you can until you use it. It will stay flat that way. When it doesn't, very often sandpaper will curl like this, and depending on your climate, it can curl like this or it can curl like this. And I'm going to tell you the reason that it curls, and that's because this surface is coated with something that doesn't allow moisture to penetrate. And what happens is the moisture penetrates the backside because it's just paper, and when it does that, it either expands or contracts, just like wood. And when it expands, it has to push the paper, not very much, but it just pushes the paper in one direction, and that's why sandpaper curls. When it comes to machine sanding, I use my random orbital sander quite a bit. And the base that I use for it is actually one of these. These are sold as router mats. They're a thicker anti-skid material, and I use it as the base. Now, when you use it for the router, the purpose of it is when you put a router on it, it doesn't move around. But the same thing works well with sanders because these tend to vibrate and move around. And the other thing is sometimes you're doing doors or things that are going to be visible on a couple of sides, and you don't want to mar the material. You don't want to mar one side after you've just sanded it. You can flip it over, and that's what this material does. It not only does it absorb some of the vibration, but it stops the material from moving around and getting marred. It just works just great. The only thing is you do have to clean these from time to time. I just rinse them off in hot water, and they're all ready to go again. So another great thing to use for sanding, will help you out immensely, and it even helps to trap some of the sawdust from exiting into the air too. So a really handy thing, these router mats. Now if you don't have this router mat material, this thicker anti-skid material, you know what, you can go to your dollar store and you can buy the same kind of material. It's thinner, but it works almost as well. It's very inexpensive, anti-skid material, and I always buy it in black because it matches my shirt. Here's one of the handiest rigs that I have in my workshop, and you can see I need to replace the sandpaper here pretty quickly, but you get the idea of it. And all this is a piece of MDF, you can see that, with a coating on it. This is just like a shelving material, and sometimes you can purchase offcuts at your lumber store, and they work perfect for this because it's nice and flat, and it's easy to work with and usually very inexpensive. And look, here's all I do. You can buy this spray adhesive. I think these are about $9 or $10 or whatever for a can. But you know what? A can like this lasts me about 5 or 6 years. It lasts a long, long time. And all you do is spray the back of any material that you want. Let it sit for a few moments, put it on there, and press it on. If you've got a roller, you can roll it, and it lasts for a long time. And here's where it's really good. When you've got little pieces that are hard to sand, especially pieces that are flat, maybe you're making door handles and you need them to be the same on each side, this is a great, easy way of sanding material to keep it nice and flat and easy to hang on to. So another great little handy sanding accessory. Well, that concludes my video on tips and tricks for sanding. I hope you found something useful there. I'm Colin Cadet for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.